Panel, Mr. Rajesh Paharia, Chief Manager, Business Development, Cooperative Export Body, NCEL. Mr. Prakash Naiknavare, MD of National Federation of Cooperative Sugar Factories Limited. Mr. Anup Kumar, Managing Director at Sucden, India. Mr. Ravi Gupta, Director, Shree, Renuka Sugars. And Mr. Sandeep Kadam, Managing Director, EDF Man India. And to moderate this session, we have Ms. Manisha Gupta, Group Commodities Editor, CNBC TV 18, the voice that we hear every day, the voice we trust. A warm welcome to the panel. This is going to be a 60 minutes session. And once again, if you have any questions, request you all to please keep them ready. All right, Mr. Rajesh Paharia had to leave for a meeting, so unfortunately he's not there.
Okay, a second day, and there's a lot of sweetness around the room here and in the conversations here as well, but whether that stands good for the industry is exactly what we will be talking about. You know, I was sitting there and I was listening to the previous panel and we were talking about the crop production numbers there. In all the years that I have been following sugar, it has been a pretty simple subject to follow. There will be associations who will come out with sugar production numbers. Yeah, it will be changed a couple of times. And then we will look at an FRP, that is something that we wait for to be reported. And then came in the MSP, and then came in ethanol. Arrears used to be a big problem. That also got sorted during the way. And then there was 2023, and that really changed a lot of stuff. Sugar has been in the limelight and the spotlight for a very long time now, and for various reasons as per se, and 2024 has exactly begun on that note as well. We have an interesting panel, interesting discussion here. We did do record number of exports, and last year wasn't so great, and this year perhaps is going to be nothing, 1 million ton perhaps if you try and push too hard, but that's exactly what we will be talking about with our panel here. Mr. Naiknavare, I'll start with you first. Cyclicality, yes, you know, for the longest time, we knew there was a 3-year cycle perhaps to sugar. Farmers would grow more, you will see the prices go higher, and then the prices would drop, and then you would see lower crop. It was like that. Has that broken now?
Yes, in yesterday's my keynote presentation, I had made a mention of this. The cyclicality, the swing, Indian swing has somewhere plateaued for the last 5 to 6 years, if you see the numbers. So global players have also taken note that India is no more into that swing mode, ups and downs every alternate year. But having said that, let's look at the future. Though cyclicality doesn't look to be affecting India right now, I don't see it not happening in near future. There are reasons for that. The policies, major policies coming in, sugar subsumption into ethanol. As and when that pressure comes from government to achieve 20% by end of next year, perhaps I see some possibility of cyclicality appearing once again.
How would you describe 2023 as it went?
23-24?
2023, as a calendar year, let's say. How would you describe it as it went?
As a trend, good and
bad.
bad.
We saw the government policy. We saw prices in the international markets hit all multi-year highs.
See, Manisha, 23-24 started with a smile, but it's not ending with that smile is vanishing. For simple reason, sudden decisions of not allowing juice syrup into ethanol, and of course, export ban was more or less expected. This has given some kind of a jerk to the 23. So you are asking me the calendar year 23-24? कुछ खुशी है, कुछ गम है. लेकिन we are positive thinkers. We'll see more खुशी coming.
You have no option, do you? You have to be a positive thinker into this one. How would you look at the cyclicality, first of all? Would you also say that it is broken, or as Mr. Naiknavare said, not so for India?
You see, effectively cyclicity is broken because earlier the cyclicity was basically because the farmer never used to get paid when you grow more sugar and sugar didn't have any substitute. So if you grow more sugar, you either export it at a loss. Until you do that, you nurse it as an interest cost. So now the cyclicity with the policy of this government of ethanol blending policy is effectively broken. Having said that, weather aberrations will continue because, 100% of sugarcane area almost is irrigated. North is lucky that they get water from the foothills of Himalaya, so they have perennial rivers, so they don't face the water problem. But in Maharashtra and Karnataka, still the irrigation happens through the river canals and the reservoirs has to be full with good monsoon, then only it gets good crop. So as far as sugar cyclicity, which was due to the cane areas and the financial reasons, is effectively gone. But weather, of course, will continue to play its cycle. So to answer your question, yeah, the sugar cyclicity is gone. And I think the key driver for this was, of course, ethanol blending policy. I've been working on this policy last 20 years. But, everything has a time and a lot of things happen when something has to happen. And the biggest thing which happened for this ethanol blending program was this variety of C238, where, UP started producing around 3 million ton, 4 million ton or more sugar. And the government also became convinced that now the surplus is definite. And that's how the genesis of ethanol blending program has become. And I think it is need of the hour. And in parallel, a lot of things happen. Because just look at 5 years back, nobody used to talk much about the green energy. Now in last 5 years, people have realized the importance of green energy. People do not want to make ethanol, they want to go sustainable aviation fuel, they want to do CBG, they want to do, because suddenly the world has realized that climate change is very, very important part of our consumption. So I think that's how ethanol blending program, and then Kindle should continue to burn.
Oh, well, absolutely. जहाँ से भी biofuel मिलता है ले लो, चाहे वो bamboo है या palm है या sugar है. I think that is where we are getting into right now. But Anup, would you also say that the cyclicality when it comes to sugar as an industry is broken? From now on, it's going to be volatile. It's going to be too many factors impacting this one.
No, I think, I agree with Ravi. Ravi, the veteran, obviously, we can't sort of contradict him. Policy has been very uniform. Policy has been very encouraging for both the millers and the farmers. Whether it be the biofuel policy, the minimum support price, the monthly quotas that have been given. So I think there is a fair amount of decoupling that has happened. The farmer is assured that the most important policy is the direct benefit transfer, right? And ensuring food for the largest population. So that has sort of taken away the need to, for survival mode, where people move out from one crop to the other just because they have to sustain themselves. I think farmers are a lot more sticky. I don't think it's, people move out of cane to go into something else at random. At least I've not seen that in my crop growers. So I think the cyclicity is really weather-led, and let's keep our finger crossed that the weather continues to be nice and kind to us.
Oh, absolutely. Your initial comments as well, Sanjay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. So, yeah, as rightly mentioned by the rest of the panel, cyclicity is definitely broken. At least the commercial part of it is definitely neutralized by several policy measures which were propelled in a direction that these things should not repetitively come into place. Whatever weather is going to be there, it will continuously keep on playing a role, and I believe sugar is no exception. It happens in rest of the commodities as well. So that part will still drive things, but yeah, cyclicity is definitely gone for sugar.
I'll come to a follow-up question with you, and our previous panel discussed on how we moved from a 28, 29 million tons of a crop forecast, production forecast, to plus 31 right now. So when we were talking about 28 or 29, it was a bad time. The whole ethanol, food versus fuel story, we started discussing all of those things there as well. Exports from record to half to nothing this year is what we are looking at. And that was a time when everybody was talking about 28 and 29. There were various reports circulating on whether India perhaps would need to import sugar as well. That would have been something. Remember, we've done all of those conversations. From where we stand right now, with the higher numbers there, is there any possibility of export opening up within this season?
I think the policymakers have the priority list already set on that front. So anything with surplus sucrose or surplus sugar prospect definitely has ethanol as the second immediate priority after the domestic consumption requirement. And if you consider that, which has been kind of a new demand in the overall dynamic or the basket, and that capacity, even if you consider the current distillation capacities installed, they are very close to sub 5 million tons of sucrose equivalent. And that's a big hole. And to fill it that much hole and then have something surplus for the world market is a bit far-fetched at the moment, I would say. So at least next maybe 15, 20 months, I don't foresee any exports out of India.
Wow. No exports?
Well, coming to your first, this one, 23, 24, really, entire industry, if you say, consensus was 29 million tons production ho jayega. And suddenly this figure has gone cross 30. Why? There are two reasons. One, obviously, 3.5 million tons was to be subsumed into ethanol, which has dropped down to half, 1.7. So you saved that 1.7, add to 29, you come to a figure. But in addition to that, the retreat reigns in Maharashtra, Karnataka, and steady growth in UP has given that additional. Therefore, I think the previous two panels, more or less consensus is 31.4, 31.5. The gap is made good by these two reasons, in my opinion.
So exports or no exports?
I don't think so. For government, and that too in election year, post-election period, the promises given for 20% blending by the end of 25 is priority. Export, unfortunately, in my yesterday's presentation also, I sort of expressed my feeling that we missed out on export opportunity, but it doesn't look to me that exports would be around the corner, at least for the calendar year 24. I don't see that happening.
And is this decision based on a formula and a calculation, or because it's an election year?
No, both. Because on one side, inflation is क्या आप मानो ना मानो चीनी को खाम इसको बहुत बड़ा emotional बना के रखा है इन लोगों ने. All other commodities prices just go up and down, nobody bothers. चीनी में जरा दम हो गया. Editorials are written against the sugar industry.
But chini is an emotion. कुछ मीठा हो जाए is an emotion.
अरे है भाई, लेकिन it's not essential, though it is included under the Essential Commodity Act. I don't find why unnecessary. Chini prices, I mean, sugar prices are very, very sensitive for reasons, at least, I have not yet found the answer to it. But for government, it is. And therefore, they will keep it, watch, and ensure that the prices remain stable, for which, at the most, if there are some excess stocks, they would use it for blending in ethanol and not for exports. This is my take.
Okay. No export from this side of the panel. Exports? No exports.
You know, to give the policy guidance for the future, which is at least 2-3 months later, is very, very difficult because the policy changes are in one meeting. So I would not say whether if exports will happen or not happen or should have. But 2-3 things, I will give you the real picture which I see. Number one, when you ask that how come 29 million ton became 31.5 or 32, and I agree some of the ethanol diversion became less. I agree on that point. Second biggest point, which we do not accept as an industry, and which we do not accept as analysts, that we tend to overestimate sugar production, both ways. When it is down, we think, oh, there is no end. It can be down by 10 million tons. I had some of the analysts talking about 27 million ton of production. And when the production is little up, we don't stop. No, India will produce 42 million ton of sugar. So it's not that the unseasonal rain only is the cause of higher production, which you're saying. It is also for the reason that we wrongly estimated our sugar production. Had we done this right estimates, probably we would not have been in the same situation as we are today. Government would not have had a knee-jerk reaction to stop ethanol, because now nobody, you have heard so many analysts, nobody is talking less than 31.5 million ton of crop against the consumption of 28.7. So you are adding to 2.5 million ton of stocks, and whomsoever you talk to. Imagine if this was known just 2 months ago, when everybody was wanting to project that there is no sugar at all, probably this policy would not have come. Now coming back to exports, from the developments which I am seeing in the global market, one of the biggest development which one has seen in Brazil, that the ethanol parity is 14 cents and sugar prices are 24 cents. So what has Brazil done? It has started maximum production of sugar. Brazil started that it will produce around 38 million ton of sugar. Now it is landing close to 42 million ton of sugar. Next year, it will not be 42, it will be more by 2 million tons because Brazil is building up capacities for crystallization. Secondly, which people are not noticing, that in Brazil, the corn ethanol has become a very, very big competitor for sugarcane ethanol. And roughly 7 billion liters of corn ethanol will be made, which is equal to 10 million ton of sugar. So there is a 10 million ton of sucrose demand which has gone to corn today. So what the scenario which I am seeing 1 or 2 years later, that is very, very bearish. So India should refrain from making any surplus sugar because that will have to be sold at a very lower prices. And what should happen? Ideally, the surplus which we are seeing this year, we should convert into ethanol and as soon as possible by allowing bee molasses or sugarcane juice ethanol, and which is very, very important. Because this surplus is not helping the industry in more than one ways. One, you are not utilizing your fermentation capacity, distillation capacity where you have invested money. And second, on top of it, the sugar prices have already reached 34 rupees 50 paise in Maharashtra. And the cane prices itself for the mills is around 34 rupees. So what you are going to see is, if this lower sugar prices continues, what you are going to see a very disastrous situation that Maharashtra might come into a situation that they may not have any kind of cash flow to run the sugar factory next year. So I think there is a need to exhaust this surplus, either that ethanol or for the farm market, so that the domestic prices also remain supported. I know it cannot happen in the near term because of the political compulsion, but I think by the time the political decisions are over, and hopefully we will have the estimate which is totally crystallized, and then the government can also take the decision a little bit more aggressively, and that time we should decide what to do sugar. World will have enough sugar for India. That I have no doubts about it.
So just a question again. So no exports in this season, and you would rather have sugar converted into ethanol instead of export next season?
Difficult one, but ideally is that we should convert in this season in ethanol.
And not export?
Export as a second alternative, not as the first alternative. Because the best alternative which I always think and firmly believe, that use your sucrose within your country rather than exporting, because you are 85% deficit in your transportation fuel. So ideally is that if we convert within the industry.
Anup, would you second that? Sugar first, ethanol second, export third?
Well, I don't, I have the luxury of giving my opinion without any cost. So I think the ideal choice today in a $600, $640, 23-cent market is obviously export, right? But I think we need to obviously make sure that as a country we are self-sufficient on food and fuel. So the minute we are hitting, let's say 29 million ton of sugar for consumption, we are hitting, let's say 3 million ton of diverted sugar for fuel, anything in excess should be exported. If the industry is given a choice, ideally that, okay, you either make C ethanol or you can export, B or export. I think then the industry is mature enough to take that call. And I have a feeling that Ravi will probably get pressurized or will probably push for exports at that time. Because today you're getting, if you're a miller, you can realize 46 rupees. What are we talking about here? And it's a windfall here. I think everyone needs that money. Least of us, poor people like me who are invested in sugar stocks. So, but I don't see any legal exports, just to put it correctly.
Well, Ravi actually already gave a caveat saying that decisions can change in hours and days. So he basically stands. Sanjay, this one is to you. So while of course we are discussing on whether we should be exporting and whether it's going to be used in the domestic market, whether it should be an essential commodity to begin with is something that Mr. Naiknavare has been discussing also. How would you look at sugar as an industry going forward from here now? From where we stand, yes, it's an election year. There are a lot of policy measures that the government seems to be making in various commodities, including sugar. And sugar is an emotion, sugar is a political commodity. We've been discussing that for some time as well. How would you envisage next 5 years for the industry from where we stand?
Yeah, I mean, if you specifically ask about the industry and we classify it from a milling and the consuming side of it, I think it's a very good landscape where the industry can be within the next 5 years.
You know, let me frame it. You answered this question, but let me ask you, is it an essential commodity? Is it a political commodity? How should be sugar looked at?
It's a mix of it. I mean, it's like a wedding. I cannot answer whether wedding is the right thing to do or wrong thing to be into a partnership. So sugar has been something like that. So it's very difficult to classify it. And this is not only in India, it's been the rest of the growing areas on this planet. So it's a mixed bag. And, but overall trajectory has been very good per se. There has been ways and means where people have found out ways to make money out of it and also have the overall development in that particular geography. And India is no exception again. So coming back to the earlier part which I was mentioning, for the industry, when we were discussing the earlier round about the cyclicity, that time we used to see a lot of problems for farmers, also for the millers. But with the end of that phase for the industry, now we have gradually also seen some buds really shooting out of the age trees, I would say, where you can see some groups venturing into taking old mills which were ailing. Raviji is right here, he's been into North India, so Railway was here. So there are a lot of examples now which we see as coming up. So that definitely indicates that the milling margins are better, the prospects are good than what they were before. So that side covers most of it. Now, if you look at the rural side of the industry, which is predominantly the growing community for the industry, their competing crops are not really paying well as compared to what sugarcane. And it's not only about the revenue, but it's also about the intensive labor requirement. As we see, most of the middle class is propelling the growth story for India, and the number of middle class with growing incomes is definitely not going to be from the labor class. It doesn't pay off well as compared to what other opportunities do pay them. So that force is shrinking. Industry is gradually shifting to mechanization, but that is gradually going to solve the problem. So take an example of soybeans. I mean, soybean today is at MSP. Cotton is not that great. And these are the pulses, definitely they are very good in terms of revenues, but the yields are so low that the per unit area revenue is not that great for farmers either. So what is more assuring is only sugarcane. So given enough water availability, there will be a lot of acreage expansion prospect. So, and ethanol has been a big propelling factor to this overall additional sucrose which can be taken care of. So I think from all those angles, sugar industry has a very good future. Also on the consumption side, again, this middle class is going to play a big role. We do see some segments having stagnation in consumption. In FMCG particularly is being very widely discussed that because of the low rural incomes, it's not really picking. But there's also niche pockets where the indirect consumption is quite horizontally spreading and it is growing. So that story will definitely propel. Anything in excess is going to be in ethanol, as we all know. So that definitely gives a kind of a shield for the millers and the manufacturers overall. So yeah, I mean, overall, to put it in perspective, the industry is really in good shape in long term. Traders, definitely, I think there will be a shrinkage of margins, there will be pressure on margins. So most of the traders being here is not going to be a very good landscape. But yeah, for manufacturers and farmers, it's going to be a good time.
Okay. Oh, well, yes, we continue to see FRP increases, so farmers are not going anywhere. For consumers, it hasn't been bad also because the government is trying to control that. For millers, yes, a whole lot of investments have been made for crushing and for ethanol as well. Do you think all of these investments that the mills have made will pay off with the way the markets are?
Yeah, they will.
It will.
This time the driver which was on the negative side is the deficit monsoon last year. But if you see the kind of interest subvention is being given, the offtake assurance has been given, it will easily be taken care. Because imagine if we were in the cyclic regime before and the industry would have came with this kind of ticket size with the new capex, most of the banks would have not entertained. They would not. Nowadays, you see even PSU banks coming forward with far lesser due diligence rather than what it used to be. So that gives quite an indication for us to understand that what's the landscape and what's the kind of ease. Basically, a sovereign guarantee to offtake your finished product is good enough. You don't need anything else.
Mr. Naiknavare, how would you look at the next 5 years, and what's your sense of all the stakeholders that Sanjay mentioned about?
That's a very, very important question, Manisha. I see, basically, our sugar industry has three deciding verticals. A, your raw material. B, how best you value add that. And C, what is the marketing avenue. So, the first part, raw material, I see as a farmer myself, I'm a sugarcane grower. I'll go for sugarcane if I have water. And that's the most farmer-friendly crop. I'm protected from both sides. My price is protected. And there is no marketing efforts required. So when my cane is ready, the mill comes and they takes away. So raw material, it isn't issue. I don't see that except the climate, the La Nina and El Nino impact, how far they play around. And I'm talking of next 5 years. That's the only gray area. Otherwise, raw material looks to be under control. With the Indian farmers, most farmer-friendly crop. Coming to the value addition, now we have so many options. One those days only, गन्ने से चीनी बनाते बैठो. No, now we have so many other options. CBG, CNG, green hydrogen has come from the energy side. Of course, ethanol is there. Then we have various other value-added products coming into. And the marketing side. I think India, as yesterday I have given my presentation, we are the highest consumer of sugar ourselves. And even for the value-added products, we have a huge market. And therefore, I see a very bright, positive, optimistic future for Indian sugar sector. That's my take on the first part. You want me to say something about the ECA? Yes. Essential Commodity Act. Friends, in India there are only two crops, sugarcane and jute, which are covered under ECA. And the ECA rules are very, very stringent. Any violation of that, it's a criminal offense, you all know. So therefore, we strongly feel that this time has come where we need to really look at the entire Baba Adam Jamane se chalte aa raha hai, sugar cane control order, sugar control order, ये Essential Commodity Act, ये वाकई जरूरत है कि नहीं? And fortunately, DFPD has taken a lead. They are ready to come and sit with the industry leaders in a brainstorming session. Very soon we are going to meet. And the major first three, we have listed about 12 issues. First three issues are on this. That we should we retain sugar into Essential Commodity Act, and there is a need for us to revise the sugarcane control order and sugar order. So that's my take on the first two parts.
And how soon is this meeting happening, and when do you see an actual yielding of it?
So, sorry?
When is this meeting happening, and do you see an actual
meeting was to happen about 2 months back. Unfortunately, it got postponed, but very soon we are holding this meeting and selected 30-odd top captains of the sugar industry, irrespective of the sector. We are going to meet and have a brainstorming session, closed-door session, no media, and no leaders, political leaders will be there. Because you know what happens, the MDs, especially of the cooperative sector, they don't speak out in presence of their chairman and vice chairman. So we are going to keep it close to only officers and real, जिसका brain storm होने वाला है, उन्हीं को हम अंदर लेके, it's going to happen very soon. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not getting into, into your head कि क्या होने वाला है, लेकिन as of now, industry perspective क्या है कि should it be taken out of Essential Commodities Act?
अभी कंसेंसस यही है कि बहुत हो गया अभी एसेंशियल कमोडिटी, इसकी जरूरत नहीं है. इससे बाहर होने से थोड़े से उसके फायदे भी है, नुकसान भी है.
मैं वही आ रही थी, क्या फायदे हैं, क्या नुकसान है?
फायदे जरूर है कि विल बी फ्री. necessary ये जो so many controls on that under the ECA and so many penalties for violation that unnecessarily brings pressure on my industry, right from growing cane to selling my sugar. अब नुकसान ये है कि at a given point of time, if there is no release mechanism, then what will happen? Will the market be flooded? And all those issues also are there. So the gray areas need also to be looked into it. But essentially, this is going to be hotly discussed in our brainstorming and come out with some concrete solution on that.
All right. Media is not allowed for this meeting, but I'm sure media is allowed after the meeting, so we will watch out for that. Next 5 years, according to you, how are they looking?
So first question first. Whether sugar is a political commodity or an essential commodity. So the government resolve
What is the answer?
I'm giving the answer.
Then you can give the justification. Answer. Political, essential, emotional?
No, this can't be rapid fire because sugar is a philosophy. Sugar is not a science.
This is a new one.
So, there's something called HFSS. You know it very well. That is high fat, salt and sucrose, which government think is not good for health, and we should reduce this, right? I was fighting a battle where they wanted to put a red dot on the products which are sugar, right? So that is one side of government which we see. On the other side, we say, no, it is an essential commodity, right? To me, neither it is an essential commodity, and I say emphatically that it is not a political commodity. Why I am saying political commodity? We have assumed it is a political commodity. Manisha, you can do one of the survey within this hall, or even when you go and hire a cab to ask your driver what is the sugar prices, he will not know. If it was so sensitive, people would have been aware of the sugar prices today, right? Nobody bothered because in the whole kitty, you are consuming 22 kg sugar per annum, right? 1,000 rupees in a year. Can it be politically sensitive? The answer is no. But historically legacy that, when government used to supply everything from levy, and I remember my childhood, even I have stood in Punjab used to have pansab. So I have stood in the queue for sugar and kerosene because that my father wanted to train me that I should see the, average man's life. That is where we have built up the psychology that, sugar should be cheap because government was selling it. So, but otherwise, neither it is political nor it is essential commodities. And I personally believe that we should allow the sugar prices to be rational. I'm not saying high, I'm saying rational. When I say rational, it should be at least above the cost of production. And it will not impact the consumer at all. The current prices, and that answers your question of 5 years, current price of 34 rupees 50 paise in Maharashtra, right? I see the problem for the mills in next year itself. You are talking about 5 years, right? So we have to correct this situation, bring the sugar price to the normalcy. And if you look at historically also last 10 years, I was doing analysis, sugar prices has just increased by 19%. Rest every commodity you take, the prices have increased by 50%, 60%, 70%. And even if you compare with the sugarcane cost has increased much more. And we try to forget the basic rationale of why we are healthy. The same industry, when ethanol was not there, we were into a sickness. We used to go to the government for restructuring of loan. A lot of mills were not doing well. Valuation of the top companies were at least 10 times lower than what it was there. Just ethanol came and we survived. But this year, there is no ethanol. So how do you survive? You survive only by having the rational sugar prices. I'm not using the word higher because that's not what I expect. So for the next 5 years, what we should be cautious of, that we make these blips will come. Maharashtra, Karnataka, weather-driven blips will come. What we should be focused on, that the survival continues. And the biggest, which government has given enough indication, biggest thing, The one thing which has made the industry survive, ethanol program should continue with the same pace. You are talking about this year and next year. I am worried about the year after that, when India will again be back to producing 40 million ton of sugar, and our consumption will be 30 million and 10 million ton surplus will be there, right? To consume that 10 million, you see, abnormal weathers are abnormal. Normal is normal weather. To have that, it is very, very important that Indian ethanol blending program should continue with the same pace. We should not have any setback in producing flexible cars. We should not have any setback in having 20% EBP petrol pumps. And luckily for us, the government has given you all the signals for doing that. They have increased the prices of C-molasses. But as an industry, as a message to the policymaker, we must have this ethanol blending program. Otherwise, infrastructures are not built on one day. It has to be a continuous process. For next 5 years, your question, the health of the industry is good, but it will be driven by what ethanol program does. And ethanol will be the key for next 5 years for the sugar industry, not 5 years, I will say even beyond.
So farmers as one stakeholder is something that continues to be in a good space. Rest everything is on an ifs and buts.
No, actually it cannot happen like that. For example, if the sugar mills start making losses, where will the money come from? Ultimately farmers...
And the sugar mill profit depends on?
Sugar mill's profit of offtake. So offtake, when you make surplus sugar, offtake is ethanol. And when ethanol is there, then the prices of sugar, simple. Sugar industry is very simple to understand. It's not very complicated industry, right? So for the next year, the growth is, for the current year and the next year, sugar prices remains rational, and we continue to focus on ethanol blending program.
So overall, you're saying it's in a sweet spot and the next 5 years look good. I mean, of course, there are some ifs and buts, but that come in with every industry, every business.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the policy are intact, and the kind of, the message which government has given, even by increasing the C-molasses prices, is very, very clear. These are the weather-related setbacks, and we are all there, we are supporting it. And so, I mean, that way, the hats up to the government, they have done a wonderful job.
Anup, what's your sense? How is the next 5 years looking to you?
So I think the broad themes that we see in the next 5 years really are concentrated around three main things. So one is data, the second is water, and third is fiscal discipline. So on data, I think, what Karam Yugji just mentioned, I think it's very relevant. From 5 to 12, I think they are going to see exponential increase. Yesterday, Atulji also mentioned that we are really poor on our data forecast. I think we will not be so in the next 5 years. And over the next 5 years, we'll be improving that very, very dramatically. So, and again, just borrowing a phrase that one of my ex-colleagues, Sanjay of Ola mentioned, agile policy making, right? The industry is caught in agile policy making because the government took cognizance of numbers that it did not have and decided on the ethanol policy. I think what the industry has to get ready is for policy based on data that is available with the government. If the data has to be given by merchants like us, then the government will decide on merchants' policy basis the data that merchants give. So industry has to adopt to better data forecast to get policy of their demand. Right? You can't demand something that you don't want to back up also, right? So that's one thing. Second thing is water. I think the whole campaign around the millet year and the millet diversion, I was doing the straw poll in our office. I think everyone practically has incorporated some form of millet consumption at least once a week in their diet. I too have. And that's dramatic because, from moving completely from wheat or rice-based diet to a part millet diet it means obviously that you are consuming less water in your diet. I think Maharashtra, again, water is a very close to heart topic, and I think we are doing sort of a small, we've asked someone to join us to just do a water survey. I think Maharashtra is under severe water stress. People are very aware of that. As merchants, we need to become aware of that also. Same with Punjab, same with Haryana. There is severe water stress in these parts. The government is doing its bit. The industry has to do its. So we will definitely see a fair amount of industry which is dependent on rainfall or dams crying out for help. It could happen 1 year, 2 years, but let's not assume that will happen for 5 years. The third is fiscal discipline. Market rewards people with fiscal discipline. Market penalizes people with fiscal indiscipline. this latest thing on a popular UPI provider which is going around is entirely poor fiscal discipline, or indiscipline actually, which is getting penalized. And I think mills which were assuming that there is a bank with a bottomless check or a blank check which has been cut out to them and they can get away with it, will over the next 5 years, if we look at the last 10 years as a historical projection of what will happen in the next 5 years, that's exactly what's going to happen. That fiscal bills have been tightened, your GST collections are being tightened, the tax revenues are up, because everything is coming as part of this huge data that the government has. And it is being put to good use. So I think we will see some development around that. Mills with fiscal indiscipline will be weeded out. So
Fair point. Interesting, you talked about millets also, and after the interim budget came in yesterday, we had a lot of millet startup scholars on the disappointment that they had, because after what millet was spoken about in the budget, a lot of startups, a lot of investments went in, and because there's no follow-up now, there was a apprehension that we saw with a lot of millet startups as well. So I understand that point of, one, of course, fiscal discipline, but also continuing with the policies that you've seen. So an year and then no mention the next year is something that really moves the market here.
So on millets, so millets, look, I think you can't, one should obviously be ready that the hand that holds you will want you to be independent at some point in time, right? I mean, it can't be a hand holding for continuity. I guess there has to be innovation going around, and startups have to stop being startups and they have to grow up.
All right, that point is well taken. Okay, I have a final round of question now. We've done 5-year forecast and projections rather, and we've also talked about cyclicality, which my panelists believe has been broken. I now want to start with you, Sanjay, and I want to talk about on what is the next thing that you would want to watch out here. We all agree that there are pros and cons to have government hand-holding and not hand-holding at all. There's a global market as well. For some time, Indian mills have liked the global markets because the prices have been higher, the realizations have been higher there. So when you look at the future, again, 3 to 5 years then, what is it that you would watch out for? Weather being one, government policies, global markets. It's a changing global map as we see it as well.
I think monsoon is very important to be kept in mind, and that is one variable in the overall dynamic which has played significant role. Rest of the variables are and will continue to have teething issues here and there, but rain is very important. And when it comes to your own area of interest, we've seen a lot of focused approach in diversifying capex, investments, marketing approaches, all of those things. But one area which is significantly correlated to the amount of water availability is the Central West India. We don't see that kind of swings onto the extremes in northern cane growing areas, although sugarcane is a tropical crop, so the more downwards you go, the better prospects of growing it. However, we do have a significant improvement in the overall supply side on the cane in the subtropical areas where probably we don't see sunshine for 2 months in the peak winters. It's very unusual to have that kind of a mix, but we still have it. So one thing which I would rather look at or urge the industry in the Central West India is also that some kind of a will has to be there in terms of the overall watershed development, prioritizing the cane requirement and the needs. And as Anup has rightly mentioned, Maharashtra is quite under stress. But if you see the Western Ghats, they receive a lot of rains as well. So, and the watershed development activities have happened, but there is still requirement for that to happen as a next layer onto the existing setup. Then only we will have less shocks. Otherwise, you look at recent greenfield or brownfield investments in parts of Maharashtra and Karnataka, they're very, very highly correlated to all these extremes. And in that case, it's very difficult to run the show. So yeah, most of it goes to the weather part of it.
So if you had to pick up a 2 and a 3, what would that be? So weather is one part of it.
Policies, of course, the second.
Policies.
Yeah.
And the third would be?
Third would be the world market.
Okay.
Because as we have discussed earlier, definitely world market offers a better realization today, although Brazil is coming up in a big way and today what world market is trading is moreover the logistics out of Brazil, not the real crop side of it. So, and participants have been finding solutions to connect that, whatever bottlenecks are there, they're trying to ease it out. So definitely they will have a lot of ease, they will have a lot of sugar, they have a lot of cane, and they are far better in terms of cost of production because of mechanization and the scale they operate into. India has that limitation, and I think that is going to be forever, with which we'll have to live with the marginal land holdings. So those things we'll have to, but yeah, there will be windows where world market will be highly correlated to all these things.
Okay.
So yeah, these things we'll keep in mind.
Weather, policy, and then world markets.
No, in my opinion, Manisha, I will have only one single variable which is going to decide. I'm talking of Indian perspective, the weather. The climate change, the La Nina, El Nino effect. You see, essentially it is all going to hamper the raw material availability. In case you have a dearth of raw material, deficit of raw material, everything falls in haywire. If it is good, everything falls in place. So I would not even like to go to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I would like to stick to number one. Give us good weather with that good water. The dam level, the water in the dams today, it's almost bottoming out. Let it come up and you will see the sea of change. That's all I want.
Weather.
मनीषा जी, आप सवाल ऐसे पूछते हैं जिनका जवाब एक नहीं होता. Now you are asking me whether or policy. It's not or.
No, I'm saying next 4 or 5 years, what is it that you want to work well with? The biggest way.
Okay, both things are related. Okay, on a serious note. You see, this country has a massive scope for conserving water for crops through micro irrigation, through watershed management, right? And when we know that water is a constraint, we have to utilize that water conservatively, not only to reduce the carbon footprint, but also to give more water to the crops and grow crops with the lesser water. So there comes the policy, right? Sugar industry, you know, if we look at it at the microscopic eye, is the only industry which assures the minimum support price, which is FRP in this case of sugar, without incurring even a single penny from the government exchequers. Look at wheat and rice. Government first procures it to ensure MSP, and then government distributes it, and we know all the cost of food subsidy is. But sugar cane assures the price without any expense from the government. So if this crop is given a due attention through the right policy and incentive, like in places like Maharashtra and Karnataka, where there is a tremendous scope of micro irrigation, where there is a tremendous scope for watershed management, obviously it helps the crop. So policy becomes a related issue. And some of the private industry has already proved that how the yields have been improved through watershed management. So we have to work together and form a task force or something similar, government and industry, that how do we grow more cane, how do we conserve natural resources to have the higher production and also the higher productivity. So there comes the weather and the policy. Sugar industry policy will continue to be important. You say EC Act, and I'm not making any statement whether it should be there or not there. But I'm very, very sure if your raw material is under EC Act with a fixed price and you try to take away the EC Act on the finished goods, it's a death knell. Generally, my example देता हूँ कि we had a big runner called Carl Lewis कि उसके एक पैर में संगल बांध दो और दूसरे उसको बोलो कि उसको मैराथन जीतना है, he cannot win. So either both the things have to have together, come to the revenue sharing formula where both the things are balanced, both things are open. Otherwise, if one noose is tight, another one cannot be let
So we are depending on that brainstorming that you guys will have, and we'll see what comes out of that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. One thing that you'll want to watch out for, which is an uncertainty or can be a game changer.
I think, we don't have any alpine rivers. We only have the Himalayas, which serve the north. So we have to obviously watch out for monsoon. That's the only thing really to watch out. Yeah, I think that's really the answer.
So with all plans in place, the next 5 years look very good, but the weather can actually play a spoil sport or can be a supportive factor as well. So we're done talking with the panelists here, but in case you have any questions and you have a feedback or you have a suggestion to give, yes, please. Can we please pass on the mic here? आप में से कितने लोगों को लगता है कि इंडिया इस बार एक्सपोर्ट करेगा शुगर? Nobody? आपको लगता है? नहीं लगता है?
Yeah, we have heard the panelists. I am Ajit Chaugale from West Indian Sugar Mills Association, Pune, Maharashtra. First, I am coming to Mr. Sandeep Kadam. He has mentioned about this thing, weather, fragmentation of the land, and the weather connectivity and productivity connected with the crop. Crop is the assured price commodity. But the finished commodity has got a lot of hazards and control orders. Looking at the fragmented lands and land revenue acts prevailing right from Britishers' empire, this consolidated farming, one I can see the ray of hopes. Second, these small farmers coming together will resolve the many issues of the industry, because many varieties, then duration crops, there are 3 varieties of crops in the Maharashtra, 12 months, 15 months and 18 months. Unlike Uttar Pradesh, which gives a 10 to 11, 12 months crops, and the ones leading Maharashtra, UP has taken ahead because soil and water is ample. So looking at this mechanization of the agriculture, what I feel, this consolidated farming is the way out. Second is the sugar industry or sugar mills. They can have a corporate farming without losing the authority or inheritance of the land holdings. So this is my submission to Mr. Sandeep. And Ravi ji, as he has mentioned about the Maharashtra, yes, with this way, I think we can lead in the Maharashtra. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was a submission, but yes, we have yet another one coming here.
Yeah, excuse me. I have a question, please. Sir, you touched on a very specific point regarding cane, that if you don't have hand in hand, you put the shackles how you were in the marathon. So any closed door meeting happening in the next 5 years, not immediately, not next year, but in next 5 years, which you or Prakash sir can throw light on, is there anything going to happen on the cane side, or we are just going to discuss about sugar every time and the policy around it?
और कुछ होने वाला है तो हमें बता देना, ऐसे नहीं कि बंद कमरे में मीटिंग कर लो.
Manisha, your investigation is so much that you can read the minds of the people who are going into meeting. So you can even forecast that what will they speak in the meeting, and I know you well. So you don't have to be in the meeting to know what we'll be speaking. So, and you know the kind of respect I have for you, I call, anyway. So answering to Harsh, Harsh, you raised a very, very pertinent question. I think the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, narrative will not be only sugar prices, it will be sugar cane. And I always, in fact, I was in one of the forum around 4 years back, 3-4 years back, there's a private equity forum. And that time the CBG had not started. So I was of the view that you will see that now sugar industry is becoming energy industry. It will not stop at ethanol. That in CBG nobody was talking. And why I said that was that when people have money in the pocket, they think of new business ideas, right? That's how CBG, now molasses converted to potash and so forth, right? Now, since there is a money on the table, every manufacturer will go overboard to ensure that a raw material comes. And there will be so much focus on sugarcane. I tell you, today ISMA, for example, the association, is focusing big time on sugarcane, how to increase more sugarcane. And this is going to be continuous process. And personally speaking, I see a very large scope of increasing sugar production in the same natural resources which we have. Look at what India has done. Just with one variety of sugarcane, you, on the same land, you have increased the sugar production by 4 million tons. And we have this continuous effort. On the same land, you are producing more sugarcane, helping the industry, helping the farmers, helping the growth of the economy. This is going to be a routine affair now.
Harsh, your closed door meeting, I've noted. Just to clarify the thing, what we have decided is to brainstorm on selected 12 or 13 topics, number one. We also have shortlisted about 30 captains across the sector. And why I said closed door? Because we would like to be away from media and away from the non-officials. So we have a free discussion. It's not that we're going to decide anything there. What we're going to do have brainstorm and come to some conclusions on each topic. And then it will be focused to the government that short-term, mid-term and long-term policies to, for the sugar sector. I think it's going to be a very positive step. And therefore I thought I must clarify that. Thank you.
I think we've been told a number of times to wrap this up. And should we give it back to you? Should we take a question? You had something to say. This is the last one we'll take.
Yeah, I have a small comment. You said whether sugar is a political commodity or whether it's an essential commodity. Yeah. So I feel it's more of a confused commodity, to be very honest with you. Because
it's a confused commodity.
you know, because see, whether you want to be, allow sugarcane to be an essential commodity or otherwise, apart from the industry, it is also the farmers who are a very important constituent, who would probably have a much more bigger say whether it should continue to be an essential commodity or not. Because sugarcane farmers, they have got a good amount of, you know, bodies who are representing their interests, and two of the very important states, both Maharashtra and UP. And these bodies are very strong to the extent that we know. That is one. Regarding the 5-year plan, as Ravi was saying and Mr. Kadam was also saying, I don't see any big expansion in area coming for sugarcane. So as Ravi was saying, we rightly have to work on the watershed management and seeing how best we can go with the varietal replacement rate and the seed replacement rate. Because unless we go vertically up insofar as productivity is concerned, I think it's going to be very difficult for the sugar industry. Yeah.
We'll give it back to you then.
Yes, thank you very much for your comments. And now let's move on to the felicitation of our panel, everybody. I'd like to invite Mr. Madhavrao Ghadke, Chairman of Gurudat Sugars, to please come up and present a token of our appreciation to our panel. Mr. Prakash Naiknavare, Mr. Anup Kumar, Mr. Ravi Gupta and Mr. Sandeep Kadam, along with our moderator for this session, Ms. Manisha Gupta. Thodi taaliyan ho jaye, everybody. Come on, a round of applause. May I request you all to please be seated for a couple of minutes more, a few important announcements coming up. हम रोज इन्हें टीवी पे देखते हैं, आज सामने देख रहे हैं, थोड़ी और तालियां हो जाए एवरीबॉडी, कम ऑन. And let's have a group picture of the entire panel. सर एक ग्रुप फोटो हो जाए. Thank you to our panelists for this very intriguing discussion on outlook on Indian sugarcane crop 2024 and beyond. May I request Mr. Gadke to please wait back on stage.